I didn't know that handing my parents a credit card just in case would be the moment an institution finally enforced a boundary I'd been begging them to respect my whole life. The first alert came while I was standing in line at Target, balancing a pack of paper towels on my hip and arguing with myself about whether I really needed another candle. My phone buzzed, and I glanced down, expecting a group chat meme or my cousin Shayla asking if I was coming to Sunday dinner. Instead, it was my bank app lighting up like it had something to say to me personally. $27 and some change, cruise ship bar. I stared at it, thumb hovering, trying to make it make sense. My parents had boarded their luxury cruise that morning. I'd given them my contactless credit card the night before, slid it across the kitchen counter like it was no big deal, said clearly, slowly, with eye contact, "This is just in case. Emergencies only. You don't need to use it unless something goes wrong." Nothing had gone wrong. They were already ordering cocktails. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. That's what I always do. Give grace first, second, and third. Like grace is a renewable resource and not something that drains you dry. I finished checking out, drove home, and tried to shake it off. Maybe it was a hold. Maybe it was some weird cruise thing. I kicked off my shoes, loosened the scarf on my head, and set my phone face down on the coffee table like that might keep it from embarrassing me again. It buzzed anyway. Another alert. Shore excursion. Then another. Cabin upgrade. Then drinks again. This time a number that made my eyebrows climb all the way up under my scarf. I sat down hard on the couch, the leather squeaking under me, and finally picked up the phone with both hands. My chest felt tight, not panic exactly. More like that familiar feeling of being taken for granted, like when somebody volunteers you for something without asking and then looks surprised when you hesitate. I called my mom first. She didn't answer. I called my dad. Straight to voicemail. I stared at the phone, then at the quiet of my apartment. The plant by the window was drooping again, even though I swear I'd watered it 2 days ago. The candle I'd lit that morning had burned down unevenly. Wax pooled on one side like it had given up trying to be balanced. I took a breath and called again. They finally picked up on FaceTime, my mom's face filling the screen, ocean blue light bouncing behind her. She had on a floppy hat I'd never seen before and big sunglasses, the kind she always said were too much when I wore them. My dad leaned into frame, smiling like this was a postcard moment. "Hey, baby," my mom said, cheerful. "What's up?" I didn't waste time. "Why is my card being used?" She blinked, slow. "What do you mean?" "I'm getting alerts. Drinks. Excursions. A cabin upgrade." I paused. I said emergencies only. My dad waved a hand, like I'd just commented on the weather. "Oh, we borrowed it. Borrowed it. Like a sweater. Like a cup of sugar. You always help," my mom added, smiling. "And it's just little stuff. Don't be dramatic." There it was. That tone. The one that makes you feel childish for asking grown questions. I could hear the clink of glasses in the background. Laughter that wasn't mine. I thought about how careful I am with money, how long it took me to get here, to be financially independent, to not need anybody's help. I thought about the years of being the responsible one, the fixer, the one who got it handled. How that had slowly turned into people assuming I always would. I said emergencies. I repeated, quieter now. My mom sighed, already bored. "Girl, nothing is wrong. We're on vacation." Something settled in me then, heavy and calm. I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a pattern. Access equals permission in their minds. My silence equals consent. If I protested too much, I'd be ungrateful. If I pushed back, I'd be disrespectful. I saw how this would go if I kept talking, how I'd end up apologizing for being upset about my own money. So I didn't argue. I smiled, because that's what I do when I'm done. "Okay," I said. "Enjoy." I hung up before they could say anything else. I opened my banking app with a steadiness that surprised me and blocked the card immediately. Disabled contactless payments. Froze the account. Then I called the bank, documented everything. Every charge I didn't approve. Every date and time. The woman on the other end of the line was polite, professional, didn't once tell me I was overreacting. When she said, "We'll note this as unauthorized use," my throat tightened. Unauthorized. There was a word for it, and it wasn't borrowing. By the time I hung up, my hands were shaking, but not from fear. From relief. The next morning, my phone rang early. Too early. I answered without looking. "What did you do?" My mom snapped. No hello, no warmth. Background noise again, but different this time. Tense. "I secured my account," I said. "We're at guest services," my dad said, voice low. "They're saying the card isn't working." "I know." There was a pause. Then my mom laughed, sharp. "This is not funny." I leaned back against my kitchen counter, the cool stone grounding me. I said emergencies only. "They've restricted our spending," she said, like that was something happening to her, not a consequence. "They're saying the balance is on us now." "Yes. You embarrassed us," she hissed. I almost laughed then, a sound that surprised me. Embarrassed. Not sorry. Not reflective. Embarrassed. "You embarrassed yourselves," I said, and felt the truth of it settle into my bones. She started in on me, words tumbling over each other, about family, about respect, about how people would look at them. I let her talk until she ran out of breath. "The cruise line documented it," I said when she paused. "It's on record." Silence. "They finished the cruise, but not the way they planned. No more spontaneous upgrades. No more tapping my card like it was an extension of their wallet. The cruise line stepped in, restricted their spending privileges, assigned the balance to their account. Institutional boundaries, enforced clean and clear, no room for guilt trips. When they got back, they came to my place, unannounced, like they always do. My mom stood in my living room, arms crossed, taking in the space like she was assessing it for flaws. My dad sat, quiet, hands folded. "You could have handled that differently," my mom said. I nodded. "So could you." She opened her mouth, then closed it. For once. There was nothing she could say that would undo what was already done. My finances were no longer up for discussion. No more just in case. No more access mistaken for entitlement. They left without hugging me. That night, I wrapped my hair in my satin scarf, lit one of my candles, and sat in the quiet. My phone was still. No alerts. No demands. Just me. Finally understanding that sometimes the win isn't loud. Sometimes it's a card blocked mid-ocean, a record on file, and the peace of knowing you don't owe anyone your silence anymore. By the time I realized how much that cruise had changed things, the shift had already settled into my bones. Quiet, but permanent, the kind of change you don't announce because you don't need permission for it. When my parents got back, the fallout didn't explode the way I thought it might. There was no dramatic family meeting, no yelling match with the whole clan chiming in like a Greek chorus. It was subtler than that, which somehow made it heavier. The group chat went quiet for a few days, which never happens unless somebody's mad. My aunties usually treat silence like a personal challenge. But this time, nothing. No good morning gifts. No prayer hands. No "you'll see this" links. Just read receipts and vibes. My mom called me exactly 1 week after they got home. Same time she always calls, like muscle memory hadn't gotten the update yet. I was in my kitchen meal prepping, chicken sizzling in the pan, garlic hitting the oil just right. I answered with my shoulder while flipping a piece over. "So," she said, dragging the word out. "You feeling better now?" I didn't even pretend not to know what she meant. "I'm fine." She hummed, dissatisfied. "Your father's been real quiet." "That's new," I said, and immediately felt a little bad, but not bad enough to take it back. She ignored that. "You know, people make mistakes." I turned the stove down and finally picked up the phone. "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice." There it was again, that pause where she decided whether to argue or pivot. "We're your parents." "And I'm your daughter," I said. "Not your backup bank." She sighed like I'd exhausted her. "I just don't like how you did it." I almost laughed. "Not what you did. How you did it." Like my delivery was the real issue, not the fact that they'd rung up charges like they were starring in a cruise commercial on my dime. "I did it the only way that worked," I said. "Because when I talked, you didn't listen." She didn't respond right away. I could hear her moving around, probably in the kitchen too, cabinets opening and closing. Finally, she said, "So what now?" That question sat between us, heavier than anything else she'd said. What now? For so long. What now had always meant, what can you do next for us? How can you smooth this over? How can you make it easier? This time, it meant something different. Now, I said, we move forward with clearer boundaries. She scoffed. You and these therapy words. I smiled to myself. Call it whatever you want. It's still happening. We hung up, not angry exactly, but not warm either. Something neutral and unfamiliar. I realized later that this was what it felt like when you stopped playing a role people had cast you in without asking. At the next family cookout, the air felt different. Same backyard, same grill my uncle guarded like it held state secrets, same folding tables lined with aluminum pans sweating under foil. But when I walked in, conversations dipped just slightly. Not enough to be rude. Enough to be noticeable. Cousin Shayla raised an eyebrow at me from across the yard. A silent, "You good?" I nodded. My mom hugged me, quick and stiff. My dad patted my shoulder like I was a co-worker. Nobody mentioned the cruise. Nobody mentioned money. But I could feel it, the unspoken recalibration. People were adjusting to a version of me that didn't automatically say yes. At one point, my aunt leaned over while we were fixing plates. "Heard you cut them off mid-ocean," she whispered, eyes sparkling despite herself. I snorted before I could stop it. That's one way to put it. She shook her head, half impressed, half scandalized. Couldn't be me. But good for you. That was the most validation I was going to get from the family grapevine. And honestly, it was enough. What surprised me most was how much lighter I felt in the weeks that followed. No more random requests for help that weren't really requests. No more guilt-laced assumptions. When my dad needed something, he asked. When my mom hinted, I let the hint hang in the air until she either said what she meant or changed the subject. And when they asked about money, because of course they eventually did, I said no. Calmly. No explanation. No apology. The first time, my mom laughed like she thought I was joking. The second time, she frowned. The third time, she didn't ask. That's when I knew it had stuck. One evening, months later, I got a call from my bank. Different representative this time, same polite tone. She was following up on the documentation from the cruise incident, closing out the case, officially. "Everything has been resolved," she said. "And just so you know, we flagged your account to require additional verification for any changes. No one else can access it without your direct approval." I thanked her and hung up, staring at my reflection in the darkened TV screen. I looked the same. Same twist out. Same comfy sweatshirt, same tired eyes after a long day. But something behind them had changed. I trusted myself more. My parents never apologized. Not really. My mom once said, "Well, that whole thing was a mess," like the mess had just appeared out of thin air. My dad avoided the topic altogether. For a while, that bothered me. I wanted acknowledgement, accountability, some sign that they understood. But then I realized something. The power shift didn't need their agreement. It was already done, on record, enforced by people who didn't care about family hierarchy or guilt trips or who raised who. Just facts. And facts had my back. The last time the subject came up was at Thanksgiving. We were sitting around the table, everyone full and sleepy, plates pushed back. My mom mentioned, casually, how expensive everything was getting. Then she looked at me. Just a glance, a test. I met her eyes and kept eating. She looked away first. Later that night, as I was packing leftovers into containers she insisted I take, she said, almost softly, "You've changed." I snapped the lid on the last container. I grew. She considered that, then nodded once. Not agreement. Acceptance. Driving home, the city lights blurred past, I felt something close to pride. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind that hums under your skin. I thought about that moment in Target, the first alert, the way my stomach had dropped. How easy it would have been to let it go, to pay it off and never say a word, to add it to the long list of things I swallowed to keep the peace. Instead, I chose myself, and the world didn't end. My family didn't fall apart. The only thing that really broke was the illusion that I had to keep sacrificing to be loved. Turns out, love that only works when you're quiet isn't love worth budgeting for.